what's been happening in the last few weeks is there's been a lot of attention being put towards government's process of moving younger kids and babies over to detention centres when they are really in need of healthcare, and also the fact that they're kids, you know? Like, why would you put kids in such an alien, potentially abusive space where it'll do more harm than good?
Now, did this kick off from... Because there was a hospital that refused to send a kid back to Nauru, I think.
Yeah.
And they just went, nah, sorry, we're not doing that because they were in the hospital. They got what they needed done. Yeah, so did this kick off from that?
No, it happened before now. Oh, man, this is where I should have done my research a bit more, but I think there was a number of kids that were in Australia.
Yep.
And I think they were claiming asylum, like the parents are here as well. The parents were going to be told we're going to be put back into an offshore facility, but the kids were going to follow suit as well. But the whole idea was you're putting them in a very unhealthy situation by moving them, and I think some of the medical issues were still under question.
Yep.
So the humane thing to do would be to let them stay, despite the fact that their citizenship and right to remain within Australian domain was under question. But it is the fact that you're kind of helping someone out. You're trying to do something that is humanitarian. All that should come to the forefront, I feel. But this latest example is happening as we speak, where at the hospital there's a baby that's currently under some medical care. That is under asylum status, and once the baby is once the baby recovers, then they'd be sent back to the offshore facility. But the doctors are trying to use their authority to say that there's medical grounds that would warrant them to remain within the hospital. And it's attracted a bit of a following as well, so you're seeing a lot of solidarity happening outside the medical facility.
Yeah.
And it's just been spreading around to social media like wildfire, at least amongst the lefty ones of us anyway.
Like, they're not illegal immigrants. They're here seeking asylum. They're here fleeing war-torn countries. It's not a case of fucking, let's just go here and fuck up Australia.
Yeah. I think where a lot of the problem happens is because people arriving in this country, a lot of the people that are against this idea of people moving from shore to shore, people are against this because they pretty much compare themselves to their own lot in life. There is the assumption that people are coming here for a free lunch. There are people coming here because the grass is greener. Just something as prosaic as that, where obviously the issues are a lot more complex. People are coming here because they are fleeing.
Yeah, exactly. Even if they were just coming here because the grass is greener, say, like, so? Wow, emigrate to a country where you can actually do the thing that you want to do. Big fucking whoop. You know, granted, go through all the loopholes that you have to, jump through the fucking hoops that you have to jump, but I see no problem with people moving here for that reason, and I definitely don't see the problem with asylum seekers.
I guess where I'm coming from, though, is that there's a lot of myths that people refer to in all of this, like that there's a queue, that a person will jump the queue in order to, and also cry victim in order to take advantage of that. But there is no queue. This is not an ordered process. If you're going to flee a war-torn country, it's like that is a very chaotic situation. People are often leaving these situations with the shirts on their backs. So I don't think there's often much planning or much logistic effort towards making this stuff happen.
If you're having the fuck bombed out of you, the last thing you're going to think is, gee, where did I put my passport?
Yeah. So there's all of that to really try to work out. Like, what is the reality of the situation? Why are people leaving? Why are people fleeing? Why are people moving? Why is that immigration
Because
flows?
of scumfucks like ISIS, and because America bombs the fuck out of everybody who doesn't send them a Christmas card.
Yes, there is all of that. But when I bring it back to let them stay, this current hashtag campaign that's happening and what's happening in Brisbane, it seems to be the chance to really explore all of those issues. And you're seeing a lot of people become involved as well. Like, this isn't just doctors taking a stand. Yeah. This is also a bunch of people sitting outside of the hospital saying this isn't right, what could potentially happen. And at the very least, it is a symbolic showing that if you're going to remove the baby, you're going to have to get through a fuckload of people in order to remove the baby, you know? But the article that I pulled the other day, it talks about the actual space that's been created outside the hospital. So you're seeing all walks of life arriving there. And there's that whole idea that when you do something like that, it's one of the rare occasions that time is yours. So you can kind of make the best of it and have a chat with people, find out new things, find out new politics, and get a sense of the world, you know? I'm probably going to do one of my grandpa stories here, but when I was a uni student...
Quiet, old man's talking.
Yes, hush, children. Back when I was a uni student, I was involved with a campaign called the Bankstown Occupation, and it went for 14 days. And Dan might know a little bit about this from the days of yore, because he was a WSU alumni now. They call it WSU now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
WSU.
So back in the day, there was a 14-day occupation at one of the campuses there, and the students that were occupying, they went to the administrative building, and they did this because they weren't happy with a lot of the conditions that were presented being a student and having an education. So the demands were met by the students after 14 days, but where I'm going with this is that for the first 14 days, people were living in each other's pockets. And then afterward, a lot of people were saying that were involved in the occupation were saying, out of the time when I was there to learn, a lot of the biggest education I got was during those 14 days. Never mind the degree that you earn at the end of it, or you know, whatever you end up doing. Like if you drop out, that's fine. So, that's about the idea of just a public space, like where it becomes a legitimate thing for people to congregate together for a common cause, and then it brings up a dialogue amongst people, and that's what this article is about. And I think from that, it's like that song from Little Things Big Things Grow, like. To have that informal space where people chat.
Hold no apologies if you now have that stuck in your head.
Yeah,
sorry
for that earworm. But it's politics, so it's about people getting together and having those novel discussions. You know, yeah. Organic. It's an organic thing.
Something new happened just yesterday. Nauru started denying visas, especially to journalists. They dressed up this explanation of like, oh, we have to cancel these visas. Sorry, you've got your flights booked to Nauru. We'll, refunding those and stuff. And then people obviously said, yeah, this is about journalists. They're not letting in journalists.
Yeah, so not getting access, not finding out the true count of what's going on.
Which, to me, was a big turning point. I mean, it's just the latest in this shit show, but. It's one of those things where if you followed history, especially like in the last 50 years or so, with like say the Soviet bloc and government bureaucracy, this is one of those things that you would put in a piece of fiction as like a clear indicator that is a scumbag. If you deny access to journalists to come to a place, you are absolutely what is wrong with the world.
Yeah,
and that's what's happening now as well. On top of them not letting in the what was it, the UN Human Rights Commission people?
No, if journalists aren't getting in, then the UN ain't getting in.
Like it's just insane. And now like this is nice because now I think I heard these churches are also starting to, you know, give asylum to asylum seekers and like
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
been
stuff
a
like
there's
that.
been a church campaign saying that which is very much symbolic, but
Well,
nevertheless it has
no,
its point that
well, no, I think they actually literally are letting some people stay there, but
oh okay
which is pretty dicey territory, really. Like that's technically breaking the law, but you know, you know, law is out of the window in this situation. The you know what's more appropriate, international human rights law or the law of a country, and then you get to the point where you're defending the laws of a country that are unjust in the world consensus. That's where you start to be the bad guy, and in history you're gonna be the guy who, you know, who I don't know, who tried to keep order during apartheid or something. No one cares that the job is hard, but you know you're doing the wrong thing. You know.
yeah
And,
yeah
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, one of those campaigners there with the churches, I think his name's Father Rod, who has the Anglican Church in Gosford. He's a guy who gets a bit of a social media backing as well. Like you might recall getting those odd pictures here and there that the
From
church
the-
signs.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Gosford Church.
He
yeah.
definitely has some strong views about asylum seekers and refugee action.
Back to this topic, I think the fact that, you know, it has become a bit of a social scene and people are learning new politics and stuff like that. Actually, this shit is actually happening. On top of it being a protest for asylum seekers, it's awesome. It's a nice little happy break in between, as Daniel so eloquently and professionally put it, a shit show.
It's also nice that there's a real world element to this rather than just a hashtag. You know, everyone can do a hashtag and raise awareness and have a discussion, but it's actually important that something does happen.
Yeah.
And I guess it lends that. I think to me it also could be an extension to. You remember the Occupy movement?
Yeah.
Yep.
To me, it seems like an extension of that. You know, where there was definitely public spaces formed there. Well, most certainly in New York, and there was really concrete reasons for why that was so, and all the different issues that came of that. You know, the idea of the 99%. To me, that is everyday language now, and that originated from the Occupy New York event. So it definitely, I think, to me, that seems to be the ways of political expression these days. That linking together between the real world and social media. I think one definitely has value if it's only attached with the other. I think on its own, you're kind of running the risk of it just being something else, some other thing that you may or may not have attention to.